Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We all speak with our bodies, our body movement, subtle body movements, and gross body movements. When we speak to a person like this, it's not the same as when we speak to a person like this. When we make this gesture, it's not the same as making this gesture, or this gesture, so on. The Native Americans in this country, when they were dealing with the American military for many, many, many years, struggling with them, all of these tribes across the country, many, hundreds of different languages, what they did is they developed in a short period of time as a strategy for communicating between them, each other with disparate languages. They developed a sign language with over 2,000 gestures, and they were able to communicate that way. Now, to me, that indicates something about them. You know, and I'm proud. My grandfather was a Native American. He was interned, you could say. He was put in a school to make him more white and to be part of the mainstream, you know, they call residential schools. And you know, that's happened with many, many people, along with just the stories you probably know about the Native Americans. But the very fact that they could create spontaneously amongst them a language that of gesture that they could communicate with, I would suggest it meant they were very much in their bodies. And we know historically and traditionally, they were a traditional earth-based people who lived with the land, with the nature, and with animals in a very harmonious way. So I speak with my body, I speak with my gestures, I speak with my tone of voice. What we know in 5 minutes or 3 minutes of exchange with each other is enormous. It's enormous. And we don't recognize it because we tend to go to this semantic, oh, he said this, and he said this, and he said this. Generally speaking, it's been established in studies that women are a better judge of character in that 5 minutes than we men are. We men tend to listen to the story. But a good con man, someone with intuition, that term intuition, they'll recognize, they'll say, you know, my wife will say, I don't know, I don't trust that person. And they're usually right. You all are usually right. Because you're more in your sensory bodies. Because you have softer bodies than we do. And we've learned to work much more in this abstracted realm of ideas and idealism. And you are somewhat, the women are somewhat more, they're sentenced to being in their bodies. Thank God. Thank God they have been, because then they have what's called women's intuition and a simple common sense judgment that's better. Now, one of the things I'd like to bring up, and it's, you know, this is entering into other territories than just the body, but the body is important in all of this. Like I said, as the body is, so is the self. A hard body is a hard person. A soft body is a soft person. A flexible body is a flexible person. Tone of voice is a lot more important, and I say this for husbands, and the wives know this already. Tone of voice, way above, more important than the words. Do you know that classic thing that happens? We all know that when someone enters the room and we look at them, and we don't even have to look at them sometimes, and we say, what's wrong? And they say, oh, nothing's wrong. Nothing's wrong. Well, I know something's wrong. Because we sense in a more deep way than we recognize with our words. So tone of voice is more important in our exchange in relationships than the words in many, many cases. We all know this intuitively. Now, the other thing that's interesting is, like I said, my teacher, he said, if you tell people things they already know, they'll call you brilliant. And so the next question is, well, how do we implement them? It's like the Prophet ﷺ, he said, don't get angry, don't get angry, don't get angry. Okay, yes, that's true. We know that's good advice. The next step we have to recognize and we have to see and we have to learn, and that is in the traditions. How do we do that? How do we not get angry, not get angry, not get angry? So a lot of what I teach and try to help us understand is the mechanics, or the dynamics, if you will, of emotion. Okay? So, if you think about a time you were angry last, can anybody, like, how many can remember many of you can remember a time when you were angry and you got angry? Like, I can remember when I got angry. We all get angry. This is part of Allah's design. And it is, by Allah's design, a valuable instrument and capability. We need anger, appropriately expressed. I had a woman that came to me one time. I said to her, I said, "How are you doing?" She said, "Oh," I said, and she was not a Muslim. She said, I said, "How was your day?" And she says, "Oh, I was at the motor vehicle department." I said, "Oh, great. Well, how was that?" And she doubled up her fists, put her elbows against her body, did this, and then she screwed up her face. She said, "I'm going to kill those people." I said, "Oh, man." I said, "Beautiful." And she said, "What do you mean?" I said, "What a beautiful, benign and beautiful, elegant expression of anger." And I said, "And you probably did kill them because you could do this." We have to understand these things. When people go out there and they do all this wreak havoc, astaghfirullah, killing people willy-nilly and so forth, and then, the experts come and they say, "Well, we don't understand." We need to understand this. We need to understand what's going on there. We have to understand. If we are carrying with us this teaching and this guidance for the last time of our species on the planet, then our behooves us to first of all heal ourselves, and then have as much capabilities to minister and heal others as much as we can. There are hikmas. Hikmas are these basic common sense principles. And I've got a list of hikmas. I don't know if I'll have a chance to go through them. I'd like to. But then there's another kind of hikmah, like there was a study they did for 6 years, studying is breast milk better than formula? And what did they come up with? Duh. And that's why I call them duh hikmas. The duh hikmah is like, come on, this common sense. We have the ability for common sense. When we say the Prophet ﷺ was an-Nabi al-Ummayyi, what does that mean? Al-Ummayyi, what does that mean? We translate it usually, but what are we saying with that? Unpenned, unlettered. So what does that mean? Unpenned. He could read and write, right? He could read and write. Yes.
For all nations. It's for all nations.
Say.
For all nations, like for Ummat.
Ummat. It comes from. But it's the kind of knowledge that comes forth, isn't it? Like revelation. And we have a degree of that in us. It's the common sense that when we listen to someone speak, and there's two possibilities or several possibilities. And one of them is we can listen to them and they'll say something and we'll say, "Wow, yeah, that's true. What word? Wow, how deep, how profound." And mashallah, teach. And on the other hand, I don't know. That guy, I think he's full of it. Do you know what I mean? How do we know it's true? We know it's true because it resonates with what we know inherently and intrinsically in our inner being, the sense of being. The biggest part of our knowledge or memory or what we've learned is intrinsic. 90% of it. Only a small part of it is semantic with words and in our bodies. We learn how to walk, we learn how to talk, we learn how to pirouette if we want to. We learn all of these things, more than we realize. And when we're in harmony with our fitrah, and with the design that Allah gave us, just like the animals that know how to do things without having been taught, the baboons with their pattern, those things want to come forth naturally from us. We want to enable that to come forth. My work in terms of healing, a lot of the way I see it is based on the hadith that removing the obstacles from the path of someone. So they become who they're designed to be by Allah. We become human beings. We become Muslim human beings when we're well. And Allah has designed into us all that we need for healing, providing we let it and allow it to take place. Just like when we cut ourselves, we don't have to tell the white blood cells to do this, we don't have to tell the inflammation to do that, we don't have to command it, because Allah has commanded it and it's designed into us. So we want to come back into this harmony of being. One of the simplest ways we can do it is to go to nature and live in nature as much as we can, and live with the animals, and live with the earth, and live with the sun as it rises and the sun as it sets. This is the kind of stuff that we're out of balance with, and we have to compensate for it. Allah also gave this ability as human beings to have this amazing resilience an ability to adapt, and that's part of his mercy. But at some point we keep adapting, and you know, everything is upside down, and we know it's upside down. And this is one of the predictions, one of the what the Prophet said at the end of time, how things would be upside down. So I speak with my body, we speak with our bodies. The advice I always give, you know, when the Prophet ﷺ, he said, I'm jumping to some other topics here, please forgive me if I seem to jump all around. I try to keep continuity of at least theme, you know. The advice I give to communities is that one of the main ones, I say, husbands, listen to your, and this is now that I'm over here speaking to you, listen to your wives, and listen to your children. Listen to them. And then hear. And, you know, we can believe. It's like one man, I had a couple that I was working with, and, they came for counseling. The woman said, well, this happens, this, and this. She described the whole thing, and I said to him, so what do you feel? You know, I particularly use that term. I said, what do you feel when she says that? You know, what's your bodily response? Because there's another hikmah, it's in that list of hikmahs. Emotions take place in our body. Okay? I'll get back to that in a second. But he said, well, I can't think of what I should be feeling. That's kind of our predicament as men. We tend to go to the abstract idealisms. And idealisms enable us to do things in the world that should be unthinkable for us if we were present in our body with compassion and with feeling that takes place in our body. And as I said before, they say traditionally, the Hakim said the Prophet ﷺ was the most sentient of beings. He felt more than other people. And that enabled him to have the compassion for the Bedouin that came, for the prostitute who came, for things that other people didn't have that ability to have the empathy or compassion that he had. So one of the principles it's helpful to understand is that emotions are I was saying, back to being angry. Remember when you were angry? The last time I asked that, pretty much everybody raised their hand. How did you know you were angry? I mean, aside from that story of that woman, how did you know you were angry? Any answers? Like, huh?
My voice was raised.
Okay, now your voice is raised. Now look at what he did just then. He observed himself from a distance. Right? In other words, you're looking upon yourself, my voice was raised. It's kind of an analytical.
Your body.
Your body what?
It's hot. I can feel the adrenaline rush.
Okay, that's getting closer. I can feel. The reason we know we were angry, or we felt angry, we felt happy. This is one of those hikmas. Emotions take place in the body. The actual place in which they finally take place. Yes, there's these things that happen in the brain, the hippocampus, and the amygdala, et cetera, and the polyvagal nerves, and et cetera, all this that happens, and this is one of the matrices, I think is the right word. But we know we feel things because we feel it. Whenever we can use that word feel, I feel anxious, I feel upset.
Your blood pressure is rising.
Your blood pressure rises. Okay, so that means you've been studying. And it does do that. And all these emotions do affect our bodily. Like I said before, one of those most important ones to recognize is that depression is also a state of the physical body. It's a state of is enthusiasm, himma, to be excited, to have energy, to have inspiration to do something, to change something, to stay on the path. And enthusiasm in English comes from the Greek word theos. It means to feel the presence of God. That little child, oh, look at that inward, that's enthusiasm. We want one of the most valuable things we want is that himma, that enthusiasm to keep on keeping on, as they used to say in the 60s. Keep on keeping on. So understanding this mechanism, this dynamic of this strange thing is valuable. It's valuable to reflect on it and to learn about it in terms of its basic principles. Like the fact that emotions take place in the body. That thing alone, that is a principle to begin to examine it. And the homework I give all of my clients and patients generally is, I say, begin to pay attention to the sensations that take place in your body. And I don't know if anyone saw this, but there was a thing that was circulated on the internet, of course, about they were imaging the heat in the body, the temperatures in different parts of the body with different emotions. So when anger took place, anger wants to go to muscles. Wants to go to the fists, to the arms, to the chest, to the face, the place where we express anger, and the place we would express either defending or fighting, speaking, growling, shouting. That mechanism, for all of us who want to follow that advice from the Prophet ﷺ, without getting angry, to be able to have a handle on our anger, in the sense that we're present with what we feel. Like men, we men have to come back into our bodies. This is one of the great gifts of marriage, that we can learn from our wives, and you wives can learn from each other, providing we make the effort and we understand the process that's taking place. It's a great test. And anyone who's been married for any period of time knows that part of the test is what do we learn, and how do we adapt, and how do we change. And I don't like to use the word compromise. How do we learn? How do we learn to fit? How do we learn to care about that other person enough to change and develop this ability to have patience and forbearance and appreciation. There's so many men, so many women, but men more than women, to be honest. And I don't want to give you, I don't want to flatter you all, but thank God for the women and the qualities that they have, because we do not appreciate what it means to have another human being to commit to being closer to us than anyone else in our lives for the entire lifetime. Commit their entire being, life breaths to us. That's not a little thing. So these kind of awarenesses and waking up, but also understanding the mechanics of, like I said, the mechanics of depression is that the body, not only is the person depressed, the body's depressed. The circulation is slow, the heartbeat is slow, the lymphatic movement is slow, the elimination is slow, etc., etc., etc. And therefore it'll be depressed. And if we use a medication that further depresses so the person doesn't feel depressed, feeling depressed is like only partially being alive, which is intolerable. That's what's so difficult and hard with depression. Yes, people who work with depression, right? What's so hard is they don't feel like getting up and running. If they got up and ran around the block, yeah, they'd probably lose it. If they went out and played soccer, or if they did something that they really play, I'd love it, wish I had more time to talk about play, the state that comes about in the state of play. The Prophet ﷺ, he played with Aisha, he wrestled with his companions. People used to play, and then the play became professional, and it became big business, and they don't play. Playing football is hardly playing anymore. Play in children, and play, generally speaking, is not random. Play is very specific expression, and it's the ability, it's a process that unconsciously children, and if you study children and you work with children in trauma, there's a whole arena of therapy in which you just get the children to play and you guide them in the right direction in which they are resolving the traumas and the experiences and the stresses of daily life of the last week, day, week, year, years. Play is the natural attempt for the body to naturally negotiate the experiences that come in. And this brings me to another really important hikmah, and this relates to what the Sheikh was saying too, it's commentary on it. And that is anything, and this is traditional point of view, anything that we cannot assimilate into the wholeness and integrity of our being. Okay? Anything that we take in that we cannot assimilate into the wholeness and integrity of our being, and that includes food, drink, atmosphere, people, experiences, anything that we take in with our senses and we experience in Allah's creation, spread out in front of us, if we cannot assimilate it or eliminate it, then it becomes toxic. That is poison. And there's some poisons, you know, the shamans in Russia, they used to drink this mushroom poison. They'd drink it, then they'd urinate it out, and the next guy would drink it, and it'd poison all of them. So anything we cannot assimilate or eliminate, and that's why one sheikh said, our practice, our path is contained in essence in istinja. You know, because we take food in, we take in what we can, we nourish ourselves with what's valuable and useful, and then we let the rest go. We wash, and we wash with water, which is a good metaphor for knowledge. We wash it and we let it go, and we're out of there. My wife was saying, we were visiting some people's house, and she was saying to me, you know, good indication of someone when they really lose the path is when the Istinja bottle becomes replaced with magazines. Becomes replaced with magazines. And that's this is the culture we live in, the non-Muslim culture. And it's tragic to see it. You all know what I'm talking about, yes? Or maybe you don't know. Non-Muslim people often don't put magazines in the bathroom. Maybe it's thoughtful, anyway, I don't give it to them. But the point is, the ability to assimilate is something we're seeking all the time. And to manage the slings and the arrows, like the Sheikh said, to be or not to be. Whether it's noble or to stand in the face of those slings and arrows. For a child to see something they don't understand is an impact. Impacts their system. If it's too much for them to cognitively make sense of, it'll go into their body. They may have the bodily intelligence, and they may have that bodily intelligence from enough close attachments and a sense of love and safety from their parents, or they may not. If they don't have that, then they'll carry this impact as a traumatic memory in their body, could be for their entire life. So when the Quran, and Allah says in the Quran, He wants for us this tazkiyatul nafs, the purification of the self, what does it mean? We come into this world pure in that sense, altruistic, with instinctual, intrinsic inclination towards morality and towards the design that was best for us from our fatra. Families, neighborhoods, communities, tribes, friends, etc., and all that implies and all that brings. That brings an enormous amount, and today, in the modern world, that's sorely missing in so many cases, where the parents don't have enough time to be with the child. And pretty soon, the child finds some attachment. The only place they can attach and connect is with their peers, and all they get from their peers is OMGs, LOLs, and all of this stuff that doesn't have any content to it. The only way children learn boundaries is this essential principle of our Sharia, to have boundaries. The only way children learn boundaries is with adults that have boundaries, by presence with them and by company with them, not from other children. So, emotions take place in the body. Everything we take in, we can either assimilate or eliminate. If we are secure and safe, and we have attachments, and we have connections with other people, there's a natural, organic way in which we deal with the experiences. Nowadays, we don't have that. So many people, they have begun to live virtual lives. And the depressed person, as I said, the depressed person is only partially alive. They're only breathing that, but how do we tell a person's breathing? I mean, alive? We see all their pulse, right? Or their breath. We have the ability, as mammals, to shut down our breathing dramatically. We can even stop breathing. We can stop our heart for up to like a half an hour, 45 minutes. The physiologists or physicians. The mammalian diving reflex, we can all do that, right? I mean, there's something called the mammalian diving reflex. If we were to drown in cold water, many of us could stay alive without a heartbeat and without any breath for up to 45 minutes. They didn't know this before. They studied this phenomenon. So at a certain point they say, well, if he's drowned, he's dead. They leave him. Now they keep working at it because they know after a long period of time we can still come back to life. But we can also shut down in degrees. And in the modern world, I would suggest we've shut down dramatically as a means of survival. I believe as a social, as a community at large, I don't think we've, in this country, we've not taken in appropriately the extreme trauma of this event that happened in which we dropped bombs in Japan that killed thousands and thousands and thousands of people. We hear about it and we learn it, but again, it's one of those things that we take in, and depending upon our resilience. Resilience is, it's also being translated in the body. Resilience is our ability to deal with things, not be rigid and stiff in the face of the storm that will break us. The palm tree bends, bends in the wind. This is a traditional hikmah. So, I know I'm going to run out of time, and I haven't got anywhere near addressing these things. So should we? I'm anywhere near looking at all these, my outline. Maybe, could we have some questions? Is that okay? We just have some feedback. Yeah.
Forgive me, this is not feedback. This is something I've been wanting to ask throughout the whole seminar.
Yes.
With the traditional healing, me personally, I have severe pinched nerve in the back.
Severe pinched nerves.
Pinched nerves.
Yes.
So, and joint issues.
Joint issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgive me and you and everybody else forgive me for this is drastically off topic. I've just been wanting to ask, and I was afraid not to get this answer before I left back to Cleveland. What do you suggest for people with severe joint issues, pinched pain, pinched nerves, stuff like this?
Okay, you all heard the question. All the things we've been talking about, all the things that Sheikh Hashim referred to, movement. Some people would say there's something I call the movement. And the movement is something, if you trace it back, it goes back to the Greeks, because their calisthenics wasn't just for the body. Their calisthenics was also considered to be part of their essential ability to learn. And in the Arab cultures, sometimes learning took place with movement. Like this movement with the body, or even rhymes or melodies to learn and memorize certain things, or poems that had a rhythm to them. So, movement and all the things that were discussed. The Prophet ﷺ saying, give sadaqah. The body has all those 300 plus joints. Give sadaqah from all those joints. What a powerful thing to say. What a deep thing to say if we look at it and we take it in. From the joints. Now the interesting thing about joints is that, we call them arthra. Doctors? Where are the docs in here? Right? We call them, the joints, we call them arthra. That means joint. And arthritis is the inflammation of the joints, right? And the joints of articulation, we can also use, articulation also relates to our ability to speak and to express. Diane. Huh? Do you know what I mean? In other words, we have a well-articulated body. Now, traditionally in Islam, from one end of the world to the other, one of the common practices was the hammam. Right? Anybody done hammam? Great thing, isn't it? And traditionally, what happened in the hammam is you go in the hammam, you sweat, all these things happen, and there's a science to it. Ibn Sina, he defined the kind of baths, the kind of hammam, when you would do it, who needs it, and what needs it. And then typically what was part of that was when you sit in there and we set, and all the muscles relax and we kind of let go, then you have some, big Sudani or Pathan or whatever, and then you get in there and bend you as far as you could go, and more. Like you're going to get your back broken. They take one arm and one leg and they go, put their foot on your back and they go, and you think, wait a minute, I can't move that way. So the movement of the arthra is important. Now there are other elements that come into play here, and that is something the modern world we have to respect, and there's a new field in medicine, or a field of epigenetics. Epigenetics is a field in which they say, people used to say, well, the genetic pattern, that's it. You know, you inherit it and that's fixed. Interestingly enough, that genetic pattern is not even fixed at birth. It's like the first year, 2 years even, that genetic pattern can establish even more detail. But in any case, the epigenetics is, how is that basic gene pattern expressed? We can inherit these predispositions from ancestors. And we inherit from ancestors when there are things that took place in a trauma, which includes, for the most part, disease that is not completely or sufficiently healed, and so the energetic level of that disease is still present and passed on in the suppressed, inerrant form. It's only a predisposition, because one of the other principles that are important is that Allah, with anything that happens to us, whether it's disease our ancestors had, whether it's childhood misfortunes and adverse childhood experiences, the ACE studies that are so important in the present world, present times, that are again finding its way into education and psychotherapy in so many fields, adverse childhood experiences and how we carry that with us in this intrinsic memory in our being, in our bodies, in our cells, that we want to purify while we can. And Salah, for example, Salah can do a great deal of that. One of the things that anyone, I mean, one of the basic prescriptions that I have for people, Muslims, if they have difficulty with anything, just do your sunnah, do your nawafil, do your tahajjud, do rakats. You know, there's a principle in the neurology that says, well, like I said, we go out and punch somebody, and what fires together the neurological pattern, it establishes this pattern. How do we change that pattern? Do you know? And one of the ways we change that pattern is by affirming and establishing better patterns. That's important in cognitive therapy. Cognitive therapy, a person can have a principle or an idea they work with, and once they can start doing that in a new way, that new way then has to be done enough so that it becomes established in the wiring, rather than imposing it. I'm being a good boy by not doing this. No, you know, we want it to be whole. So the joint things, you know, there are some people that they put more importance on how flexible the shoulder is, you know, than how strong the arm is. But it's a balance. And all the musculature, we want that to be balanced equally and with equanimity around the skeletal structure. That's why when it comes to exercise, Sheikh, you know, laid out these different. We want exercises of resistance that will build tone and strength. We want stretching, but also when we do exercises, one of the things I've seen with a lot of my clients, one of the things that brings this, as is the body, so is the self, that brings this equanimity and balance into place, is when they develop their body in a very balanced way. That's why Ibn Sina said swimming, and the Prophet said teaching children, because swimming, so much of the body takes part, from the feet to the hands to the head, you know. But what they call compound exercises. So that you're doing something, you're not just moving this leg, we move dumbbells. And I recommend dumbbells over barbells, because you can do more movement. And to move in as many ways as you can, in as many directions. Traditionally, the warriors, you know, the Turks, they used to have this thing, I think they called the muqdar. It was a big, I got this from Taqiyuddin, you know, in his grandfather's notes, it's a drawing of it. And it's a big wooden thing with iron rings on it. And you'd use two of these and swing them. You know, training for sword, but it's heavyweight, and then they have drummers that would drum, and they would do this thing so that rings would make noise, and they'd get into this kind of movement that was, you know. So all of these were in our tradition to understand, you know, we stretch the joints, we work them, and we nourish them. In the modern days, I'm racing through a lot of this material because the time. A lot of the things we have to realize that the modern diet is totally upside down as well. And our sensitivity, I know I don't mean to sound cliche and like I've been reading too much sort of help yourself books, but gluten is an enemy. And we used to be able to manage grains and a lot of carbohydrates because they were not the same grains. You know, I don't know if everybody knows, many of you will know this about wheat. From, you know, Ibn Sina said the best wheat came from northern Pakistan. Sorry?
Is that the Khorasan?
Yeah, the northern parts, those are, and it was a kind of wheat that had a certain kind of winter to it, so it would freeze. And he said that, but that's, we don't, even if you go to the northern territories, northern frontier, you don't get that wheat anymore. And the man that won the Nobel Prize for changing the wheat was on the, you know, Time magazine giving the Nobel Prize because he developed the wheat that, did you talk about this?
No.
He developed a wheat that grew 1/3 as high as it used to, and gave 3 times the yield. So everybody adopted. But how did he make that wheat? He made that wheat by treating the grains to toxins, to gamma rays. You know, he hurt it. He damaged it, but it produced more. So Allahu Alim, but also the modern world, we have to see, along with the upside down thing, along with not having community, without having company, without having neighbors, along with that, the environmental poisons that are out there, we cannot underestimate that. We cannot, and I'm not being paranoid, I tell you. If you read the studies, and the studies on, and one of the significant ones, the studies on what they call xenoestrogenic. Xenoestrogenic, anybody else know xenoestrogenics? Xenoestrogenics, three or 4 years ago, the National Convention of Endocrinologists, that is people who study the hormonal systems. And their convention, one of the main things they addressed by several different speakers was what they call endocrine disruptors. That is things that disturb the natural endocrine function. We're in the midst of an epidemic of that. We're in the midst of an epidemic of it. And particularly in the last 35 years, the obesity rate. I mean, the one man I was reading, he said interesting things. If you look, the people who, people who are in their 60s or 70s and 80s, they're not obese. And he said, you know why? Because they all die. That's why. Wallahi, and this is, I mean, we laugh, and every time I laugh, I don't have enough time to get into the dynamics of laughter. But it's a really interesting one. Another time maybe. But we laugh because there's a charge around the topic that demands some release. We don't laugh because we say, oh, that's funny, I'm going to laugh. Ha, 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 ha. It's an autonomic release of the nervous system. And it's always, and the stand-up comedians, they know this because they pick the topics that has these unresolved charges around them. Men and women, politics, sexuality, blah, blah, blah. You know, all these subject matters. But, you know, and worse than that, if you really do the research, anybody does research on this whole thing with our inability to manage gluten, it's no accident that Walmart and the major stores have sections for gluten-free, and everybody, you know, they put gluten-free on water. I mean, they do. Have you ever seen that? It's like, excuse me, but it's a real thing. And there's a real, and so people say, well, wait a minute, my grandparents, oh, they didn't have that. But conditions are not the same as they were for your grandparents, or our grandparents. So much has flooded our reality. You know, one of the great tragedies to me is to go into any market, supermarket, or even Whole Foods, and to see a wall of choices of cereal, breakfast cereal. I mean, honestly, to me, it's a tragic. I look at it and I think, what have we done? What have we gotten into? And what have we taken as a norm? One of the things of the illnesses, and the question is, it's not just a physical reality, it's a spiritual reality. There's a spiritual reality to the fact that we've developed an acceptance of norms that shouldn't be norms. And that's constantly, the boundaries of that are constantly being pushed. I remember saying it in the 60s, one of my teachers said, look, you'll see this, and then you'll see this, and you'll see this. These norms will be pushed, the boundaries will be pushed. We also have to recognize that a lot of the pathologies, or stuff we would consider pathologies, particularly in terms of hormonal things, may not be just choice. The xenoestrogens are all of those substances, chemicals, that function like estrogen in the body and in the environment. It's in the water, it's in the air, it's in plastic cups, it's in plastic bottles. It's in, particularly in this atrazine, you know, the people know atrazine? You know atrazine, you follow these things, right? It's in the, you know, this Roundup, this thing. I mean, I see people, you know, driving down the road, I see someone at this thing and I think, oh my God, what are they doing to their grandchildren? But we know that these estrogen, the xenoestrogens, that frogs will grow, you know, male frogs will grow female genitalia. And there's incredible distortions that go on from these hormonal disturbance. It's not a little fact, not a little piece of information. So along with all of that toxicity, along with all this disturbance of lifestyles, the gluten is another one, because glue, it's like glue, it just clogs up the brains. And the studies are, you know, people that stop gluten, they're less likely to have dementias. Where's our dementia president? He's not there. They're doing dementia studies. But we want to be able to think as we get older. It used to be that a person in traditional cultures, as men and women both got older, they become wiser. You know, half of everyone over 80 in this country will have Alzheimer's. And the dementia rate's gone down from 2002 to now, and a lot of that might do to with the exercise movement, and diet. Although we don't know. We don't know a lot of things, but we know what is basic good health and good principles here to follow. Yes?
Are you advising against gluten?
Well, to be honest, I've never said this public before, but yes, I would do. I would say, yeah, I would say. And I would also, while we're on it, some of you are noticing that I didn't take lunch. I took lunch with a glass of milk. I took breakfast, it was some yogurt, a glass of milk, a little bit of fruit. Traditionally, we did not eat 3 squares a day. Traditionally, people ate something light in the morning, then they got busy. They did things. You know, and that's what I recommend. I recommend, as hard as it may be, and as unnatural as it might be, if you're used to be in IT and you're with your computer, you can still go out and learn to do something physically that has a product, because the body and the nervous system, it's like I say, when you walk and you get to a place, there's a completely different thing that happens inside us. We can't underestimate the connection between the hormonal experience of doing something and the, you know, like being on a treadmill. It's not the same. Wrestling with each other, that's easy. Doesn't cost anything. You just have to find a couple of people, especially ones you can knock down, and wrestle. Fun and play, even for us adults, the body goes into a particular state that's not, you know, there's a unique kind of letting go that takes place when you enter, not because you're playing and I'm doing the things that's play. No, I'm having fun. I'm having enjoyment, pleasure. I am playing. It's natural for us. Even old, you see old animals, old mammals, horses and cows, even cows. You know, have you ever seen these videos of the cows that were kept in their cages for, you ever see that one? And they let them out, they've been, all their whole lives, they've been in these stalls getting milk. And then they let them out one day, and these cows just go crazy. They're just, I mean, it's so, they're just like jumping around, and they're just, I mean, and it's, we can identify with it, we can empathize with it, because our mammalian nature is to do that as well. So there's lots of stories around that. Yeah, so I don't recommend it. I mean, the problem is, you know, in the society and the culture, you know, we're looked upon often as kind of eccentrics, kind of kooks, you know, and a lot of the things I'm saying today, and a lot of things I say nowadays, I didn't say 30 years ago. You know, because I think people weren't ready for it. They were, you know, but now the mainstream medicine is finally saying, hey, forget cholesterol, move. Forget cholesterol. You know, I've finally identified some cardiologists who say, yeah, the heart attacks are probably more from hunkering down and rigidifying all these muscles up here in the shoulders and the neck. And cause it, you know, it's to do as we get older, all that rigidity of some muscles, chronic tight muscles that disable the natural flow. You know, and this opening up, that's why swimming is so good. You know, but stretching. And like I say, since we don't have those hammam and the Sudani to, because what they would do is they would stretch you, you stay warm, and then wallahi, you know, I've had this in Algeria and Morocco, they stretch you as far as you can go, and then more, and more. And if you do that regularly, then your articulation is greater, your flexibility is greater. A flexible person is a flexible person. A person who has a wide range of motion has a wide range of possibilities in their foundational vehicle that their spirit lives in. Do you see what I mean? I've had people, wallahi, one of the things I teach people is, we don't have time for what I call my chi. But my chi is a movement, it's a thing in which we let our body move by what our sensations tell us. Not by a recipe from the yogas or the Tai Chi master or whatever. We let our sensations. So maybe we can try. Why don't we stand? Is that right? For anyone who's interested in the Mai Chi exercise and its development, because I have first stage of Mai Chi and then the advanced Mai Chi. I call it Mai Chi rather than Tai Chi, because it comes from your own sensations of your body. They guide you. But let's start with an exercise. Where's our dementia person? He's gone?
Yep.
Oh, sorry. Okay. You were over there, right?
Oh yeah, I switched because I need like a table.
Sorry. So these exercises, there's a person, Bartiniev was one of the pioneers in this, and Rudolf Laban in France. These were back in the 20s and the early days. But one of the studies they've done with people with dementia, varying degrees, is they had them practice movement that was slow and conscious and with full awareness of what's happening in the muscles and the nerves. So first of all, let's start with just a little entering the whole concept of paying attention to sensations of the body. Raise your hands as if you're making dua. Remember I said mind is what we pay attention to. And nowadays they're developing this idea that our body has mind as well. In other words, the mind in our hands, the mind in our feet, the mind in our guts. That actually engenders understanding, concept, and knowledge. Knowledge of the cells can come out of the body. So we hold our hands up. Just pay attention, not by looking at it. Some people, if I say pay attention, notice or shift your awareness to the skin covering the palms of your hand facing upward. And see if you could sense that skin stretched across that surface. Yeah? By shifting it, you can do it, right? Just like if we suddenly say, okay, shift your attention to your feet. Notice what you feel underneath them in the carpet, right? Can we do that? Yes? That's the mind. And that's the sensations that are possible. When we shift to our feet, we could say the mind in our feet is telling us what's underneath. Now, the hands, so notice that as you hold them here, you start to now, maybe you start feeling the weight on your hands a little more. Yes? Is that happening? Can you start to feel the weight more? Now, raise the temperature of your hands, make them hot with your will. In other words, just send heat there. Most people can raise the temperature of their palms a degree by willing it. That's what we're capable of. That's what's capable of what we ordinarily think of as the kind of unconscious autonomic system. It can be manipulated, it can be managed, and it can be regulated to some degree cognitively. But it can be taught to regulate naturally as well. So now notice that. Warmth in the hands, warmth in the hands. Now turn your palms, don't move them closer together, just turn them so they face each other. And notice what you feel between those two palms. Huh? Do you feel something there? That something is not imaginary. That's a proprioceptive sense of that other hand being there. The nervous system is capable of all this. This is very crude. It's not that subtle. We can get into much more subtle things in the body in terms of understanding. Now move your hands very slowly, just a few inches closer. Notice what changes. We could say it's in the musculature of the arms. It is that, but also notice that something can actually feel the energy, and that energy is real. We believe in subtle realities, and we believe in this energy. And as you move it even closer, notice the kind of tension and activation that builds up in the palms. Can you feel that? Then you move it even closer, closer, but not quite touch. Notice how strong that tension can become until finally you touch the fingers and the palms together, and notice how exquisite that experience is in terms of sensory experience. Yes? And how that feels. Balanced. Balanced. You got that? So, that's one of the homeworks I give, paying attention to the sensations in your body. My wife made a t-shirt that says, "What do you notice in your body?" Because she does this work as well. And so that exercise, the University of California, Berkeley, and Stanford in the last few years have done studies in which they have people go to this beautiful place where there's a beautiful landscape. You know, scientists are crazy in some, even if it's sort of half science, but and they study, well, chemically, what's the chemistry of the body when someone looks at the beautiful landscapes and they say, wow, or we would say, subhanallah, mashallah, or the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said there are three things that I see and they bring coolness to the eye. What a beautiful description of a state of being, of calm, peace, coolness. He said running water, the green of nature, running water, and a beautiful face, mashallah. We know that experientially. But our bodies also do respond. One day I was driving down the road in New Mexico, and I was noticing the clouds were like, it wasn't just the sunset, it was the entire sky. It was brilliant orange, pinkish orange. I stopped the car and I said, let's get out, look, and we all got out of the car, and we looked up at the sky, and my kids were saying, subhanallah. We were all kind of in awe of it. And Stanford and Berkeley, they're both describing the kind of chemistry that takes place when that takes place. And it's all these immune things, but it's a life force too. It's the chemistry of hamd. The chemistry of hamd. What a big medicine. Yeah. Take this. You take this and take three at night and call me in the morning. And so we were about to get back in the car, and I looked down the road, and all the people on that road had stopped and got out of their cars. That what gave me hope. Because that thing we have in common, all of us, however far off we might be out of the path of Allah's creation, it still at times moves us to harm. So these exercises, so before we can get into my chi basically has three parts where you pay attention to the sensation in your body. You ask yourself, well, what does my body want to do in response to this? Like, for example, right now, if I pay attention to the sensations of my body, I can feel a little tension in my left lower back. So my body wants to move to the left back a little bit. Okay, so then first I imagine doing that. When we imagine something, there's a chemistry that takes place, and there's a neurological experience that takes place. When we see something, we have what they call mirror neurons, so we kind of experience it with empathy. We go through the same process of what we're observing. So, first part of my chi is, what do I notice in my body? What does my body want to do? I imagine it. And the third thing is I let that take place. And the only thing I do cognitively is slow it down. And there's an enormous big secret in slowing down a movement. Okay? I'll say that again. There's a big secret in slowing down movement. So, the kind of exercises they do with the people with dementia was, without doing the Vai Chi, without the sensations, try and look at the movement, look at the speed that I'm moving right now. See, it's kind of moving, slow motion, like a slow motion movie. Now, I'm not asking you to do this, you can, But I'm going to suggest that you ask your body, given your state, what's going on, what do you want to do? And if you don't know, you can't say, well, I don't know what my body wants to do, then just start moving at random. Go ahead. Don't be shy. I've done this in groups and everybody just sits there. But the point is, notice what's taking place in the muscles and the nerves closely. The slower, the better. Now, if you feel like stretching suddenly, recognize that and respect it, but keep it slow, because a slow stretch will be expanding it in time, expanding the experience, and giving you more in that stretch than if you did it rapidly. That's a big secret. The big secret is that when we make it, and same when we exercise, if you work out with dumbbells, anybody, I suggest one, moving slowly with the dumbbells, even a light dumbbell, and moving in as many directions as possible, and engaging as much as your body at the same time that you can, so that you're using your legs and maybe your hips with that dumbbell, and you're exploring. I had one man who was obsessed with cleaning. He couldn't clean, he'd use baby wipes and could clean something like the gas pedal in his car. He told me he'd have a hard time with that because he'd use one baby wipe, then you have to throw it away because it was dirty, so he'd have to use it. It'd take hours. We worked with him for a long time, and then I said, well, how's it cleaning? And we were working. And he said, well, I've given that up. I said, what do you mean you've given it up? He said, yeah, I gave my brother my card. He can borrow it, I don't care. It's okay. And he was just passing it off. He said, whoa, hold on. Why is that? What happened? And he said, I think it was that exercise you gave me. He said, I particularly like moving the dumbbell this way. When we move in all the directions we can move, listen to this. When we move in all the directions we can move, it's like the baby exploring and discovering what it means to be in the world. When we move in all the ways in which we can move, we're reclaiming our arena of being. Does that make sense?
Have you seen the original Strength, Tim Anderson? Have you seen, he's got that kind of concept.
It's part of the movement. There's few people that do that. There's a few people that do that.
He just studied the kids, what they do, and he made that whole system.
Mazen, where's Mazen? Who was telling me about him? Right? Do you know him?
Yes, I know.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, but if you look at what the principle is there, it's again, as is the body, so is the self. If we have a stiff body, or if we feel we're carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders, yeah, it's hard to move. Get tired carrying that much weight. So this movement, again, so try some more. Paying attention to the muscles and the nerves, and let your body do whatever it wants to now. Whatever, let your body show. Do you want to move here? What wants to happen? Do you feel tension? What wants to happen? I can feel my back wants to stretch to the side. It's slowing it down. And if it's done with deliberation and care and focus, it won't just be robotic movements. You'll experience that movement to the point that it probably will bring breath. Because if it's done properly, that stretch, it's like body yawning. And the same thing that happens with yawning. When we yawn, well, there's hadith about yawning, it's an autonomic release. And it releases all the muscles from the gut, here, back of the neck, and the chronically tightened muscles. We want equilibrium of the musculature around all the bones to be equally toned, not some hard and some soft. The terrible postures, part of my study of this, when I'm in airports, I just watch people and it was Ralph Waldo Emerson again. He said, for the one who has the wisdom to see it, a man is revealed by his posture and his gait, the way he walks. And if you really begin to examine the different way people walk, the way you walk, my teacher, one of my beloved teachers, at 95 was teaching us how to do somersaults. And was showing us in the somersault you can diagnose the person's flexibility or their blockages, and it's a therapy as well. to be able to make that somersault, to go upside down, and back up on your feet, and present. So,
Regarding walking, we could talk about having, like in the Shemaiah of the Prophet I'm talking about, it was as if he was coming down a mountain, these firm steps.
yeah.
Is that also what's emphasized in the science, or is it more about gracefulness and being
Well,
kind of more finesse?
He was a model, and you know, that thing of him, the way he walked, the way he looked. I mean, he was our model, so we know that he was the epitome of what we would look to. Presence, you know. But walking, yeah, I mean, like I said, my teacher, the same when he did the somersaults, at 95, he had me walking up the hill with him and had me paying attention to my state and walking down the hill, and the difference. So walking down the hill, there's an interesting thing that happens, and this is applicable to progress we make. Earlier we were talking about, I think, somewhere what you were talking about, Sheikh, or something was said about how when we make this much progress, if we pay attention to that, honor it, sort of capitalize. How do we capitalize on improvements? How do we capitalize and change? Like one day, we don't raise our voice to our wife. Rather, we hold it, and then we see the results of it. That's a step. And we see the good response. We say this instead of that. When we see improvement in any way, that much, if we pay attention to it, we can speak about it, or recognize it, honor it in some way. It's like making one step towards Allah, He makes 5 steps towards us. It's a strategy for change, to recognize even one step in the right direction. Now the interesting thing is the animals, we have the same chemistry in us. When we make progress and we're successful in anything we've been attempting, we have a release of testosterone, which is a boost. In the animals, they call it pronking. And a lot of this science and this understanding for this discussing comes from the study of animals in nature. We are animals in nature. Or we're animals, I don't know how much we are in nature at this point. We're animals in the zoo of modern life, in the zoo of artificial light and artificial temperature, artificial, transportation. What the Moroccans just call the number 11 bus has been put out of commission, walking. The animals, when a gazelle is being chased by a cheetah, they have this, when they're running, they can't turn around and really look, but they can sense peripherally where that cheetah is. And they'll weave and they'll do this. As soon as that cheetah knows by his speed and by experience the speed of the cheetah, the gazelle, sorry, as soon as the gazelle recognizes, and as soon as the gazelle realizes he's outstripped that cheetah, in other words, he's gotten far enough ahead that he's going to be okay, what happens to him? It's called pronking. Pronking is when he recognizes he's made it, he's escaped. And instead of jumping like this, he suddenly begins to sail. Huge leaps with that inspiration. And that's, where does that come from? We could say it comes from testosterone, and a gazelle, I'm not sure. We have that same capability. And that's why we want to appreciate and respect, even so many people, they come to me and say, well, I was getting better, then I had a relapse and I'm back to square one. I say, no, you're not back to square one. Allah, in His Quran, He says when we lose the way and we come back, He brings us back at a higher maqam, a higher station. In the studies with relationships, for the married people, the couples that fight, and they learn how to manage and get past it, and suddenly, oh, it's all back to square one, we're fighting again. Oh my God, should I even be in this marriage? No. The studies are, each time you fight and come back, you come back with more closeness. So there's maybe that much, but there's change. My teacher said, nobody's ready for marriage. Marriage is how you learn how to be married. Marriage is, and if you're not learning in the process, you're missing the whole point. So we didn't get too much into this movement, but try moving, paying attention to the sensation, the muscles and nerves, and let your body do whatever it feels like doing, and whatever it tells you to do, and see if you could notice, what is it telling me now? Now, You started stretching rapidly. You do the same thing, slowly. If you do this slowly, properly, with full awareness of the muscles and the nerves, they can be any part of your body, twisting. If you do this on a regular basis, you can release stress from a day, from the week, from the months, probably from years if you do it really with focus. And if you sometimes do it with small, light dumbbells, and let your body tell you. So what you're doing is your body, with its tensions and the nerves, the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of nerves that Allah has placed in our bodies, using that to inform us, not using a recipe from some discipline that's imposed upon us. We're doing what the lion does. The lion doesn't read this, Tai Chi book, wakes up and, stretches, does that whole thing. That's in our nature as well. So I really, if anyone wants to type, the Tai Chi exercise is really dramatic. And just remember this, what it simply is stretching and moving, but very, very slow. The secret in the moving is that when we move rapidly, like I stretch like this, I'm going from point A to target. When we slow it down, the nervous system recognizes options all along the way. Can go this way, can go that way. It opens up in the nervous system something beyond the established hardwired template of pattern. On a positive note, this, all of that is something that is wired into us, a dramatic, established template of being and of submission. That's why more rakats is a medicine. More wudu even is a medicine. Prophet ﷺ, he made wudu even if he didn't have to do it to make salah as an ibadah. Yes? So, sadaqah the same, giving the sadaqah with all of those joints. Giving with your whole being. What else?
Question, actually.
First of all, thank you for this. It's amazing. Could you actually talk a bit more about the sadaqah aspect? Because a lot of, there's a really interesting connection between sort of well-being and economic giving, which I'm sort of fascinated by. But also, a lot of kind of what you talked about earlier is that a lot of what you talked about earlier, like just overall, sort of from a systems point of view, a lot of it is due to sort of modern developmental economics would sort of focus on like output yield, things like that, at the expense of more holistic development, holistic kind of like wellness. So that would be, I'd love to sort of, if you could expound on that connection between economics and well-being, things like that.
Well, I think, if you recognize the quality, there was one sheikh who said, this body is the little universe, and the universe is the big man. Some of you have heard that probably, right? In other words, it might talk to me. He said everything that happens in here happens out there. It happens out there in separation, happens in here in gatherings. All the processes, all the activities, all the qualities of process. There's another hikmah, I'll get into that. There's another hikmah that's on my list of hikmahs. I was going to read those because I'd like to go through those before we finish. But one of them is every sensation, every time we have a sensation in the body, there is a process connected with it. Now think about sensation. We can have pain, we can have pleasure, we can have itchy, we can have fuzzy, we can have tingling. I can go on and on and on. Because the range of sensations by Allah's design capable, that is in the subtle realm as well as the kind of obvious, like pain, heat, cold, pleasure, pain. The range is as great as all the things in the universe. That's a pretty big statement if you think about it. The nuancing. And the women generally have a greater access to the nuancing of sensation, and we call them too emotional because they do have that sensitivity and the changing of moods and sensations they want to change. So one of the things I always use as my example is if you touch the chair, touch the metal chair, and notice the temperature, and then touch a piece of cloth, the temperature, and which is warmer, which is colder? The metal's colder. Okay, physicists and the people that have heard this lecture before, which is colder and warmer? They're the same. What's different? What's different? The heat from my body is going into the metal. Process. Something's happening. The heat from my body is actually going into that metal to warm it. They're the same temperature in the room. My experience is different. Same when we feel the weight of our body, we feel the weight of our body. Something's happening between the earth and my body, and my senses. So the range of senses is enormous. The more we pay attention to it, I don't have time to tell all the stories. I'd love to tell anecdotes, but there's a man I met who was a philosopher, and his whole concept of philosophy was broken by this man who did lots and lots of dhikr. And he demonstrated to him, he said, could have a discussion about the Arabic language. He's an Arabic scholar. And they had a discussion, and the guy had done all this dhikr. It was in a tariqah in Ajmer. He said, you know, Arabic is different than other languages. There's actually a reality to each. I'll get to you. There's a reality to the forms that's beyond symbols on paper. And they had this argument, well, no, it's symbols on paper. No, it's something more. Source forms, it's something greater. So this man demonstrated, I met him in Pakistan. He had been the Minister of Education in Oman. And he said this is how he discovered that he needed to make dhikr. This man demonstrated that by blindfolding, having him blindfolded and reading by smelling the letters. And it shattered his world. You know, whoa, wait a minute, how's that possible? And then that was the next question. He said, how is that possible? He said, because I did this kind of dhikr, this kind of dhikr. And that's what made this man take this path of, dhikr to polish and develop the senses, the sense of being, the presence of being. So we leave this wholeness traditionally that was in place more organically, naturally, and we try to discover it, you know? We try to discover it, and one of the reasons we don't discover it is that we have so much distraction. Weapons of mass distraction, someone said. And that's because we can't manage the difficulty. We can't even manage the emotions that want to naturally come. They're too overwhelming for us. And look, at even that is a somatic reference, overwhelming. Or I get upset. To be upset, it's not standing on your own feet and having that solidity of being present. So we lost the wholeness, culturally, socially, and individually. And each person's wholeness would engender wholeness in another one. That's why we could go to someone who has wholeness. We can spend time with them. And we can pick up just by their presence of a company, by keeping company, or together we engender also the kind of group wholeness that can come about just by being with someone. And that's been example, like this whole movement of attachment therapy and there's a film called Paper Tiger. Anybody know that one? You know that one. Very beautiful, isn't it? And basically it's about these children in high school, these problem children, and all they do is they make a commitment. The different teachers make a commitment. Each one, I'm going to actually connect and spend some time, give this person as much attention, in spite of their bad behavior, in spite of their falling back, they transform. The other thing to transform is just simply being with ourselves. You know, to me, it's an awesome thing that there's many examples in the past 10, 15 years of people being in prison, wrongly, for 20 years. A bunch of them. And the DNA proves they were innocent. And I remember the first time I heard an interview with one of these guys. He was this black guy from, he was in prison for 20 years. And 10 years, he was in solitary. He was in solitary for 10 years, wrongfully. And so the people said, the interviewer said, well, aren't you angry? Or aren't you angry at that? Are you resentful? And he said, I'm not resentful in the least. And he was genuine, you could tell it. He said, you know, you could all go to You know, weekend workshops and self-help things, but if you're with yourself for 20 years, isolated, nothing else, you will have knowledge of the self that you will bring together. And he says, I have no regrets. I have more pleasure and more fulfillment now than if I hadn't done that. And this is consistent with these people. It says something to us. One of the things that we don't allow children nowadays is solace. Time to just simply sit and be. And they say, I'm bored. I mean, you know, were you ever bored as a child? No, right? Right, you grew up when I did grow up. But then we had fields to run. You know, I could chase the jackrabbits where I was. We could go out in the day and spend hours doing things, playing and getting so involved. The parents would have to say, come and eat, because we'd be interested in playing. And nowadays, you're afraid to let your children out on the street, let alone, you know. So times have changed. And the ability to be whole, wholeness engenders wholeness in us. That's why we go to our guides. We want our guides to be the people who are whole, and we can taste that, so to speak. We can sense it. So we say, kefahal, this thing of being aware of the body. Hal is not just completely in the body, but that's where we can kind of access it through the felt sense, by what we feel. Like forward, active, feels passive. From India to Morocco, from the east to the west, they had, traditionally in music, they had the ragas and the nakama, right?
Yeah.
Shake. Musician?
Yeah, I kind of left that a little bit anyway.
Yeah, but those were demonstrations of states. Each raga had a certain quality to it. In the scale. And the scale was kind of a kind of amalgam of tones and pattern. We go through something similar. States. What is your state? Kefa. What is your state? We don't often know our state. Like the man said, you know, when I said, how do you feel? He said, I can't think of how I should feel. You know, we live up here, not in here. And we can learn how to live in here more from our wives. So the counsel I always give is, and this is something you take away, and I promise you this can have results. Once a week, ask your wives, or you usually have the wives, ask your wife, how am I doing on a scale of 1 to 10? And then just listen. Don't say a word. And notice what happens in your body. And just notice. You don't have to do more than that. Imam al-Ghazali said that real knowledge is nur, light. The first stage of knowledge is we illuminate something. We see it. We know what the problem is. We know the elephant's in the room. Oh my God, there's a giant elephant here. We never noticed it. Same thing in the body when we become conscious of what's happening in our body. And I tell you, if I had more time to give you anecdotes about people in which I do this somatic work with a person, and I help them track the sensations in their body. This is happening, now this is happening, and this is happening. The things that come forth are knowledge of what happened to them in the past that they didn't even look at. Even if they've been in therapy for 10 years. Because the body, so like I said in the Quran, says on that day of judgment, which your body will speak for you or against you. This is indeed, you know, nowadays, now there's a whole field in which they say embodied cognition. That is knowledge and education and learning and knowing that's bodily, not semantic. And that's why anybody who's starting to get older, if they learn any mind-body coordinated, if I have to use that term, mind-body coordinated thing, whatever it might be. I had a patient the other last week, and I said, well, you know, swimming's so good. He said, well, I don't know how to swim. And I said, go learn how to swim. Learn how to swim, take lessons, and that will potentially ward off any dementia that might come. Because the way it looks, everybody's going to be demented if things continue in this direction, right? It's not getting better. I mean, it's gone down a bit since 2002 to 2012 or 14 or something. But that's, I think, mostly from exercise and diet change. But diet, it's pretty clearly indicated now what happens chemically with the proteins in the brain and diet. And for a lot of, I hate to say it, it's gluten is not a friend for us at the moment. Now, Ibn Sina, he said, the things we lose as we grow older, from when we're babies and young, is the strength of digestion and the depth of sleep. Both of those things, that strength of digestion and the depth of sleep, are kind of essential for a good, healthy being, to be able to nourish ourselves. So, you know, the ability to digest the modern foods and all of the things that the modern foods and the environment and all these things that are taking place in the world that has disabled, the same way that gluten disables. There's a BBC video, it's worth watching if you don't already know these things. It's called, it's a 3-part series, documentary from BBC, and it's called The Men Who Made Us Fat. Because this thing has only happened, the obesity has only happened in the last 35 years. You know, I was looking at some photographs from the 60s from Woodstock Festival. And I thought, well, maybe, you know, it's interesting to look at that. And I started noticing no one was fat. No one. Everyone's thin. They were all in their 20s. There's a serious epidemic, and that epidemic means diabetes. It means the breaking down of the ability, the disastrous fat that's taken on around the waist, all of these kind of things. And then the brain. And the brain chemistry, it's really becoming established. I mean, if you read much of that, you'll say, oh my God, I'm not going to touch gluten anymore. And you know, you run the risk of seeing as, you know, I haven't, like I said, I never said this until, this is the first time I've ever spoken this in public. Because I didn't have the resources to go and say, well, read this, read this, read this, read that. The studies. So really quickly, how are we for time?
3:15 is done, so we
20 minutes. 5 minutes?
20 minutes.
Oh, 20 minutes. Well, I'm sorry we didn't go through some of these basic hikmas. I really wanted to give you this traditional view of nutrition, though. I did cover some of it. Just really quickly, there was a Swedish guy, maybe you know his name. He invented the vitamin, right? Nutritionists. You know, the Swedish guy invented the vitamins. We didn't have it before that. We didn't look at nutrition in terms of A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know, we didn't give them numbers and letters. The idea that we can give numbers and letters, we have to look at that as the kind of thinking that comes from. It's not that it's not true, but back to your comment, the whole is what's important. It's been pretty obvious for studies and people that have looked at this issue. If we take more B vitamins, it doesn't necessarily we're going to get rid of that symptom that's supposedly the indication of a lack of vitamin B. It's assimilation. It's making use of it. It's integration. It's how they work together. It's the hormonal system, with the nervous system, with the circulatory system, etc., etc., etc. It's this all holistic, right, systems, whole system working together, and how each thing influences another thing. The chemistry of Ham, etc. Traditionally, and you know, I really first starting practice, I'd see people who come to me very sick, and they were eating nothing but healthy food, doing healthy exercises, blah, 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 all this, and they were a mess. Then I'd have someone come in and he'd say, well, you know, I eat, 10 eggs a day. Back in that day, I thought, oh my God, how can he do that? Now I can understand it's probably not that bad, right? Traditionally, I think we had a broader understanding and kind of conceptual of things. Hikmah, one of the earmarks of hikmah is that it doesn't go out of style, and the other earmark is it's common sense. When we recognize it, we recognize the truth of it. But sometimes we can get hikmas that'll open up or a key to something more. When it comes to nutrition, look at what happens. We take carrots, potatoes, some lamb meat, whatever, We eat it, and it's changed into our body, human body. Not only human body, but our own particular one, and it recreates and rebuilds this nose. And cyclically, what is it, every 3 years, we have a new nose. Right? Right? With 3 years, something like that, the cycle to rebuild all those. And yet I get the same nose every time. What's going on there? Like, what the? Strange. But traditionally, it's like one sheikh said, look at the plant. The plant with water takes minerals and water from the earth, and it moves the mineral realm, a kingdom. You know? Allah's Rah is Rabbi Alami, all the worlds. What are the worlds? The mineral world. Another world is the plant world. Another world is the animal world. Another world is the human world. Another realm of the prophets, peace be upon them all, and the Malaika. He created all these worlds. The plant transforms the minerals and the other kind of elements that are there, you know, bacteria and all kinds of, transform it by the light of the sun. And my teacher said, we transform the food by the light of the self. That's why meal taking with company. You know, in Morocco, you go, if you give a person a plate to eat alone, they'll say often, "A'udhu billah." You know, they won't eat alone because of the hadith. I spent time in Morocco, and when I came back, my children all grew up eating from the single plate together. Where you learn adab, you learn something different takes place. But in the traditional model of nutrition, who made the food? The company that you're sitting and eating it with. These are all relative to the nutriments and the quality of nutrition that's taking place. For so many people, because their mother is the one that fed us originally, from the breast and came from the digestive system, from the mouth and the nursing to washing our bottoms. Mother was the feeder for us. And so for so many people, mom still makes the best biryani of anyone. Or the best makhluba, or whatever it might be. Because it's a natural thing. It comes naturally from the mother. So we transform by the light, and when Ibn Sina talked about the stages of digestion, right? Prophet said in one of the hadith, he said something about making the food, the way the food looked. If it looked all right, it looked good, it would try it out. So the first thing that happens is the setting we're eating it, the conditions we're eating it. That, our state, when we're prepared to take that food, then the smell of the food. If the food doesn't smell good, our system is already, the liver's not working, saliva's not working, different chemistry's taking place. So the first stage is the way it looks, the way it smells, and who made it, and where we are eating it. The next stage of it is feeding it with our fingers. What does it feel like? What does it like to? Because already, when we touch it, our nervous system is telling our whole system about it. And when we eat and digest food, we're not just digesting it or assimilating it. We're transmuting it from one kingdom to another kingdom. It's transmutation in the world of substance, from non-human to human, and not only human, but our own special balance and mixture of human. So we feel it, we taste it. If it doesn't taste good, already it's not going to do. If it tastes good, that's why Allah could have designed the food. He could have, he could have had just one thing, like the koala bears. I think the koala bears, they only eat eucalyptus leaves. Their whole lives, that's all they eat. I mean, it could have been like that for us. Eucalyptus leaves. That's the food. But no, when I went to Malaysia, I ate, the first day I was there, I ate 13 fruits that I'd never even heard of before. So, I didn't get a chance to get to this principle that the modern neurologists, so we're transmuting it. It's got to smell good, it's got to taste good. That's part of Allah's mercy. Prophet said when he ate melon, he ate it and the juice would run through his beard. And his companions looked at him and he said, eat the melon in this manner because it comes from Jannah. So respecting that Allah gave us, the question that people ask me was, from an Islamic point of view, we don't believe there's a contradiction between pleasure and spirituality, closest to Allah. But it's not hedonistic pleasure. It's essential pleasures. Like I say, the pleasure of breathing, the pleasure of being able to walk, the pleasure of being able to speak. These are all what are called essential, I call it essential pleasures. To be able to drink that in, the pleasure of simply being. I have a son who's disabled. He's 27 years old. He was told he wouldn't live past the age of 7 or 8, 9 maybe. And he's 28 now. And he can't do anything for himself. He can't sit up, he can't speak, can't feed himself, can't change himself. And when I leave him, he just has to lie there unless I pick him up, put him in a chair or something. If I go away from him for a period of time, like maybe an hour, I'll leave, I'll come back, I'll say, Kareem, how are you doing? He doesn't laugh. He squeals with delight that he cannot contain. Right, Mazen? You see him. Just, he's so excited inside. The modern neurologists who study chronic pain have informed us by their studies that the body is designed to experience pain, pleasure, 10 to 15 times more easily than pain. That's typical of Allah's design, but we don't see it. We don't recognize it. And when we don't recognize it, we also don't experience it. Pleasures are not, it's not this giant feast. That's not a pleasure. Walking is a pleasure. Meeting of someone you care about that you love, that's a pleasure. Seeing a beautiful face, running water, animals and their behavior, and I could go on, and we all know this. We all know these, but we take them for granted. We're not awake to them, because if we were totally awake to them, we would probably be shouting SubhanAllah until we'd be falling down. That's the reality. So we want to tune into that as much as we can. We want to try to amplify it, pay attention to it, and discover it. And discover it, one way we discover it is, like the studies in Berkeley and Stanford, what happens in my body when I see that beautiful thing? When I meet someone I really care about. Likewise, we can also do the thing when we meet the annoying person, and there will be annoying people. If we don't have annoying people in our lives, there's something seriously wrong with you. And that person that annoys us, they are annoying to us. My daughter said, if someone gets angry at you and you get angry back, she said, isn't that like, this is what she's very young, she said, isn't that like taking a little bit of their poison and drinking as if that's going to make it okay? If they're annoying, okay, what happens in my body? Well, how is it that they have the power to annoy me? And owning, as they say in the modern world, owning that annoyance, that state. So simple pleasures, to drink them in, pay attention to them. Well, every time we can notice a simple pleasure of being and experiencing the world, in relationships, in the world, with anything at all, the simplest thing, when we can recognize and we can actually honestly say, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, I can do this. Being able to speak and to be able to articulate with nuances, emotions. I don't like that. Oh, I love what you've done. We just take them for granted. When we begin to do that, then what we do, what we do is we begin to build the capacity of our container of being. We build the capacity of the container of our being, so that we ride this. But it's not a hadith, but it's a metaphor I use a lot. The African saying in which they say, many winds will blow, and the lion remains. That steadfastness, that stability, that solidity. And to develop that, in the face, because, Allahu Alam, but it looks like we've got a lot to face coming up. Allahu Alam. Alhamdulillah, that the world and the situation is in Allah's hands. And He's in charge. That's always a good reminder. Whatever it is, however difficult it might be, or however easy it might be. We're told though, we're advised by the Prophet that it's not going to get better. So we want to develop this ability to be present in ourselves, to be steadfast. And all of this that I've talked about, we can do. It's all doable. All of the program that Sheikh Hashim gave, to follow that, to take it, and what Lamont's going to present, to take all of this counsel and use strategies together to enable it to become a reality, not something that you've come for 4 days and then you walk away from. Do you understand what I'm saying? You know, one of the famous lines, one of the famous metaphors that Shuyukh have used is that, you know, if a lion came through the door, you wouldn't be depressed, right? You wouldn't be sitting there, you know, no, you'd be, definitely, but, and of course the metaphor is, the Sheikh said, and a lion has come through the door. He's here now. He's come through that door and he's standing here, and that is our inevitable death. We will be taken down, we will die, and now we've got a chance. We have how many more springs? How many more falls will we see those leaves fall to the ground? How many do we have left? On the whole island. That's not very many. When we look at it in terms of seasons. So now is the time to change. And to enlist the help of each other to do that and make it possible. Create, you know, halakas, whatever it takes. Create, you know, establish something in your house. Well, I have a man who was a student of mine, and I said in one of these lectures, I said, you know, invite your neighbors. Like, do you know your non-Muslim neighbors? People, you know, a lot of people don't know. I said, go, introduce yourself, invite them to dinner, make some good food for them. And, you know, I hadn't seen him for several years, and I went to visit him in Connecticut, and we went for a walk down the street. All of his neighbors came out and said, his son's name is Yasin. All of his neighbors came and said, Yasin, how you doing? You know, the neighbors all know him because he invited them in their house and he fed them. Change the pattern. Change yourselves now while you can. Time is going. And as you get older, you know, it becomes more noticeable. Becomes more, you become closer to it. Hello, Adam. And recognize this natural inclination we have to just do nothing. And every moment, every minute, it's being taken away by not doing, not caring. If we really cared, we wouldn't allow some of the stuff that takes place to take place. If we really had community and connection with each other, we just wouldn't stand, we wouldn't sit for it, I should say. You know, that's the expression, you wouldn't stand for it, it's more like wouldn't sit for it. We get up and stand against it. We do something, we speak at least, teach, learn. And our children, you know, this thing that's happening with the poisons and the toxins in the world. If you read the research, it's not a little thing. It's not a little thing. And to be honest, you know, all the things that's happening politically with the gender confusion. I mean, we can attribute, if you look at the studies, you can attribute a lot of that to just the chemicals, the pesticides and the herbicides that are tweaking the hormonal systems so that we're having all of these out of balance things taking place across the world, including the simple lowering of sperm count amongst men, adult characteristics in girls taking place when they're 6 or 7 years old. You know, like in the animals, the frogs, it just, genders change completely. So, you know, we have to be intelligent about all this that's taking place. And there's a lot we don't know. But we have to be intelligent about all of it. And really, we have to move into action. How are we for time? I keep asking how are we for time.
5 minutes.
5 minutes? So, is there a 5-minute question? With a 4-minute answer?
Can you go over the control paradigm under somatic therapies?
Sorry?
Under somatic therapies, control paradigm, can you summarize that?
Well, we live in a time in which we don't allow the lust design to take place. You know, the gazelle, when it's caught by the lion, that's my example I give. The gazelle, when it's caught by a lion, it's dragged away. If the lion is distracted by something, and the gazelle has enough chance, you guys all right on that? The gazelle has a chance to get up and escape. It doesn't go through this thing, oh, I need to go to a gazelle therapist. But what does happen is a very specific, identifiable, physiological process in which they release the charge from that experience. The nervous system is designed to do that, providing we allow it. But we live in the paradigm, now in the modern world, the paradigm model is if there's a problem, whether it's a medical problem, physical problem, a social, familial problem, political problem, social problem, if there's a problem, we bring in and exert more control over it. Look what's happening at Standing Rock. The more people that get there, the more forces they put in. So this is the model. It's kind of a stupid model. I love design. It's like the Chinese, centuries ago, they said, don't build your berms, their berms, you know, the berms that hold back the water. Don't build them too high. That's asking for trouble. Rather reroute the water, you know, be more intelligent about it. You know, the problems in the inner city. You know the rat park experiment? Psychologists, you know the rat park experiment. You know the rat park? I mean, that was a study, this guy, Alexander was his name? The rat park guy, was it Alexander? Anyway. They had rats addicted to heroin and water, and they created a park that had all the delights that a rat could want. And when they had all this delight, they wouldn't go to the heroin. They chose real water instead. Good water. You know, I mean, we know this inherently, but, you know, incarcerating people because they're addicted to drugs or, do you know what I mean? I mean, we don't operate very intelligent, and in exerting more force, military, or whatever kind of force, the control over paradigm, is the way we've learned in the modern world to manage things. But it's not always the most intelligent way to do it. It's not the way of hikmah. So it's like, I remember in Pakistan, they have these really big black ants, giant ones. And they used to crawl on me, and I was looking at all these things, studying them, and I realized, no, I don't want to brush that ant, because it can keep coming back. I brush it in the way it's going. I can get on with you. You know, this is one of those basic hikmahs. And again, surfing was always an example. Surfing is this great, I always respect surfing because surfing, you don't make the waves, you ride the waves. And you learn how to recognize, you know, we used to say, outside, you know that one? In other words, you say outside to everybody because there's a bigger wave and a better one coming, so don't take this one. Outside, wait for that one that's coming. And with that, you have to make the effort, you got to paddle fast enough to get up to speed, get the right place on the wave, and then stand up and let it carry you. And Allah's creation is all like that. One of the hikmahs I didn't get to, that comes from Quran, is in the alternation of day and night, in that is a sign for those who reflect. What an awesome ayah that is, in terms of the body and in terms of all life. Our nervous systems charge up from activating experiences, and they settle. The mother and the child, when the child looks at the mother, the nervous system measurably charges up and activates, and when they look away from each other, they settle to both. Rise above. When we take a breath in, our nervous system activates, and we breathe out, it settles. Or it should, unless it's not well regulated with rising and falling. And the ability for this natural rise and fall is the regulation of the nervous system and the regulation and management of the self. Anger, we have this ongoing sense of sensations, temperature of the room, presence in the room, and emotions are these kind of waves that come from the sea that's constant, that we're more or less awake to, more or less, depending on how present we are, or we may not even be aware of it. We drive across town, we arrive at a destination, and we think about it, we didn't notice anything on the way, or so we thought. At least not with our cognitive, we just automatically, like a robot, got there. It's recorded inside us. more than we realize. So, mashallah, inshallah, alhamdulillah that Allah is in charge. And one of the things that I pray, because disease, illness, and misfortune, all of these things are by Allah's command. Nothing happens without His command. And by Allah's generosity, in the most difficult of circumstances, the most difficult of predicaments that we find ourselves in, Allah gives us the opportunity to gain from that. His mercy is greater than His wrath. And what he brings about for us daily in our experiences is not a sentence, but it is a challenge. And that challenge, when we meet it, is the means by which we gain wisdom, compassion, more humanity, and we draw closer to Allah. Wallahi, I promise you that's the case. So much so that I know one sheikh, he said he was tempted to say, Allah, bring us misfortune. That we can. He almost did. He wanted to, because he knew that's the thing that transforms us. And I pray that Allah does not heal us individually and as collectively with the way in which He has done in the past, which is with His Jalali nature. Pray that we can gently move to that we can get up out of our chairs, that we can turn off our TVs or throw them out the window. Problem is, we threw them out the window some time ago when we listened to Hamza Yusuf's lectures. Now it's stuck back in through our computers, hasn't it? It's devious alarm. It conspires against us for sure. But for your children, out into nature, out with animals, teach them to ride. You know that you can get free horses from New Mexico. Free horses. And those horses are Mustangs. You can get for $125, you can get what they call a tip train, basically beginning training. You can get those. And those horses are Arab horses. The guy that did the DNA, they're Arabian horses. They may be, part of the Ahl Bayt. The Prophet ﷺ had horses and bred them. So some of them may come from that chain. And they're out there running wild in New Mexico, in the plains and stuff. What a beautiful thing to see a herd of 20 or 30 of them crossing the road, And but they're, Allah still has given us the opportunity for healing. Coming together, creating communities, creating even short-term coming together, feeding each other, meeting with each other, halakas. Study anything. If you get someone with knowledge to come and study, that's and make it more than just make it something. Play soccer every week. Play soccer once a week. I know a community in Glasgow. They've been doing it for years. They have really strong Islamic study programs. Strong. But they also all go out and play soccer every week. Inshallah. Alhamdulillah. May Allah heal us all. He's the one that heals it. I ask all of you to make dua for me and my family. And we make dua for each other. But remember, please, I really pray that we can remember some of the things I've said. Take them away. And make it, people make their New Year's resolutions is coming up. They make it, how long does it last? Use the strategy that you need in yourself to see that something happens and it sustains past a week, month, a year. This is a lifetime of change. And wallahi, the most important thing I can say to you is you can do it, and you can do so much more than you can even imagine. Wallahi, I tell you, you can do so much more and become so much more than what you imagine in terms of this change of the self coming into your body, developing this healthy lifestyle, healing our community, healing ourselves, inshallah. Alhamdulillah, barakallahu fikum.